to everybody and anybody that's willing to listen about this issue. I've been walking through the streets and talking to anybody, that is willing to stop this issue that we got going on here. There is no law that we have that forces you to report your gun being stolen. There is no negligent storage law. There's about 17 other states that have a negligent storage law. There is no law here in South Carolina that makes you to, I guess, responsibly, conceal your weapon in your house or in your car or wherever. You can put your gun anywhere. You can leave your gun right there on that seat right there. Nobody's going to get punished for it. It's the issue that we have here in South Carolina, and I actually I reached out to the NRA. And I said, hey, listen, can y'all at least I said, if y'all don't want to do anything, can you at least just make it so people will have to report their guns stolen? I said, anything else, fine. I know y'all are all, gun ho about everything. At least say people have to report their guns stolen. He said, well, all right, and, we've never done this, but I'll reach out to all the, all the members, and I'll see if they'll go along with this. And they came back to me in a few days, and they said, listen, Jermaine, we have never supported anything like that, and we're not going to. And you can use us as a good bash. They say, hey, listen, we're okay with that. Bash us if you want. They told me to go ahead and bash them because they know how much power they have. They know how much money they have invested in this, and they know that every time somebody dies, they make money. And that's the problem that we have here. We're fighting lobbyists, we're fighting money makers, we're fighting these big corporations, we're fighting backers who don't give a darn about the people that's in this community right now. And we have to figure out how to combat that. Any of these negligent storage laws that have been passed, they have done so against the NRA. So that is something that we're going to have to do here in South Carolina is just go against, whatever they're talking about. I've had these conversations with my Republican colleagues, and they say, listen, I agree with you, Jermaine. I agree with you. But if I was to support this bill here, then I'll get voted out. They're worried about self-preservation rather than preserving the people of this community. And these are some of the things that we have got to address immediately.
Anybody else on the panel would like to respond to that? All right, moving on over to this. We do have, so talking about from arrest to a trial, me being an anchor person, we're always reporting this person was arrested, that person, and then the last sentence, they're out on bond, they're out on bond, they're out on bond. And so many times people always ask the question, how does that process work, or how do you determine who gets a bond and who doesn't? All right. Come on down, solicitor. How do you answer that, sir?
It's not as easy as it seems, the answer, but the quick answer is this. and after we answer that question, we'll talk a little bit, and I want to talk about that effect on juveniles as well, because there's a different standard for juveniles than there is for adults. Essentially, the South Carolina Constitution says that anybody who is arrested for a non-capital crime, essentially, meaning not a murder, is entitled to a bond. And you're entitled to a bond, but you've got to show kind of two things you got to look at. Number one, if a person is a danger to the community, and number two, if a person is what's called a flight risk. And so you have to explain those things to a magistrate judge, which is where most of the cases come through the magistrate system. And if there's a showing that the person is not a danger to the community or a flight risk, then they are entitled to a bond. Whether it's a surety bond, meaning whether a bonding company has to essentially have a policy on them that says they're coming to court. They may have an ankle monitor, but they are entitled to a bond. And so that is the question. Once a person is arrested, if a judge believes that they are either not a danger or not a flight risk, meaning they're going to come to court when called, then they are going to get a bond. And what we've seen since COVID, since COVID happened, essentially February 2020, is there is a movement for cases that are not what are called nonviolent cases. There's a classification of cases that are called nonviolent that's done by the legislator, that if people are in jail for nonviolent matters, then those folks should have bonds, should be placed on maybe ankle monitors so that they won't have the risk of catching COVID while in jail and having an outbreak in jail. So like I said, it's a complicated matter, but those are the first things that are talked about. And so oftentimes, as we all have seen, somebody may be out on bond and then a violent crime takes place, and then communities want to know why they're out on bond. And the answer to that is when they answered to the judge at the time they committed the crime, there's a finding that that person was not a danger or was not a flight risk, and that they needed to have a bond based on those conditions.
Is it on? Well, with a juvenile, it's a little different. This group that we're talking, 14 to 24-year-olds, a juvenile in a possession of a weapon from 14 to 17 years old will be considered in family court with the recent raise the age. It's not too recent anymore, but possession of a weapon under 18 is a 5-year nonviolent felony. And so that's a family court offense unless there's something else accompanying it. So under our laws, there's numerous different factors and reasons why a juvenile can be detained. But one clear factor is if you're in possession of a weapon. And so you are able to be detained if a juvenile is found in possession of a weapon. The detention decision is actually a law enforcement decision. Law enforcement has the discretion to either detain or release a juvenile back to their family. If a juvenile is detained, they are not entitled to a bond. They are entitled to a detention hearing within 48 hours before a family court judge. And lots of different factors are taken into consideration. It's safety, community, ability to be monitored by a family member, ankle monitoring, school, extra activities, prior records. There's lots of different things that a family court judge would consider. If the juvenile is not released or the charge is not adjudicated at that hearing, there's a 10-day hearing, then a 30-day hearing, and then hearings until the matter is actually adjudicated. I would say at most time, the matters can be resolved either at that 48-hour or the 10-day hearing. But I don't think just because it's a nonviolent crime, we can belittle the importance or the significance of a young person in possession of a gun. A young person as young as 14, and we've had them way younger. We've had 12-year-olds in possessions of guns, 11-year-olds, even younger in possession of guns. They don't know how to use them. They don't know how to work them. They don't understand the significance and the power of holding a gun when you're that young. You might see somebody on TV or see somebody else hold it, but when you're under a certain age, you really can't understand what you have the power to do. So we can't underestimate that, and we need to act appropriately. So that's why laws right now allow a juvenile to be detained when they're.
I would add, just to be candid, I think this is where we're failing. There's not a police officer that's going to investigate a violent crime up and to include a murder that is not going to take that trigger puller is a danger to the community. That's why they're there to begin with. And we see so many of our offenders reoffend, have very lenient gun accountability, meaning you get caught with a gun, it doesn't matter if it's first offense or 10th offense. It's not going to be a situation where somebody's detained. But number one, we think shooters are a danger to the community, and then we would also argue that oftentimes they are a flight risk. We invest a significant amount of time and staffing to track down people that have fled our jurisdiction and bring them back to hold them to account. So I feel like we easily meet that standard, and that that completely compounds the problem, what brings us here today.
Lawmakers, I know we talked about that. Just to clear, Ms. Hendrick, you mentioned under 17, they could have it's considered a non-violent felony if they're in the possession of a weapon. I want to make sure I got that right.
17.
17, gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Lawmakers, you all want to talk about how can that be changed?
I want to talk about the issue with the magistrates. So, I mean, we've got this issue going on where, we tell these young boys to, after somebody has shot them or shooting at them, we tell these young boys, hey, listen, don't retaliate. Don't shoot them back. Don't go do this. These young boys out here, they don't care about nothing. They don't care about anything. And we're telling them to don't retaliate, to cooperate with the police and to do the right thing. So, let's say they decide to cooperate with the police and they turn the person in. So now one, they're a snitch. All right. So now one, they're a snitch. So they do that. But then we got the magistrates that say, you know what? I don't think this person is a flight risk or a danger to the community. So now let's let them out, or let's give them a bond and put them out on monitor. So now this person is a target and a snitch, and we are not giving these young people any options. We're not giving them anything, and I know this firsthand because I've talked to a young boy who was shot, and I told him, do not do this. Don't go back. This is going to be a war. This is going to be something that's going to happen. you know, and I'm telling him, don't do it. And he's saying, all right, Mr. Johnson, you know, I apologize for my actions. I apologize for what I did. I'm going to cooperate. And guess what? That guy is good. He's getting out. The guy who was doing the shooting is getting out. So now, you know, what are you doing? Now you can't go back to the hood. Now you can't see your boys. You can't do none of this stuff because you're a snitch. You got all this stuff and you're scared for your life. You know, so we have this, the system is not designed for us to survive. That we are a target, young black men, young black women, these young kids, they are targets out here. And we have got to do something to change this system, to make it more fair, because these young individuals are losing their lives and they have no options.
Solicitor, we're going to go ahead and call you back up again. We talked about the magistrate. I know he's getting the questions together. So the question about the magistrates, we know, how can that possibly change? We besides the pandemic and all of that, what can we do to keep, I guess, people from coming out the streets again?
I think the biggest piece, and I think Chief and they've talked about it as well, is when a person is arrested for a crime, one of the most important pieces that needs to happen is that people have to be able to come and express why, you know, they feel the person is a danger or a flight risk. In those violent situations, there will be somebody from our office in those situations and who's there in the bond court. And again, they'll explain what the person's record is. So important things are this. Number one, if a person has a prior record, that record needs to be known. If that person has affiliation one way or another and has been in situations prior to that, that information needs to be known. I can tell you law enforcement locally does a wonderful job getting that information, but that information needs to be passed on to magistrates so that they know what the issues are. And those issues need to be spoken to at the bond hearing. And once those things happen, that's when a decision needs to be made. Now, there is a line. If it's a murder case, if there is a kidnapping case, an armed robbery, those matters are generally heard in general sessions in front of a circuit court judge. There's a distinction between the two. And again, that process takes place. And I think generally you'll see a different type of bond in those types of situations. But information is key up front. Communities have to be able to speak up and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is our concern. This person is a frequent offender. And these are the issues that we're seeing. And if they're able to do those things, then sometimes you'll see different results.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think sometimes too, how do I say this gently? But you have lawyer legislators, and I have nothing against lawyers, but laws are designed in a way to allow certain outcomes. And if you have a situation where lawyer legislators are creating laws that have cracks, craters, holes, and they know where those holes are because they're the experts in the law and they're also making the law. And most likely they're the ones who are before those magistrates with those individuals who are accused of breaking the law. So there is a very fine line to what's to happen so that law enforcement have the tools that they need and solicitors have the tools that they need. I do believe the person is innocent until proven guilty. I believe that. But I also know that if people are caught in a situation where they are clearly in violation of the law, there ought to be laws that actually say we're going to recognize that this is a first offense, a second offense, a third offense. And you have that with everything else for the most part, but you don't have it with guns. And we just have to, and they'll tell you it's because, you know, it's a constitutional right, guns are this and guns are that. And that may very well be true that you are entitled to constitutionally responsibly own a gun. And I don't think that means an artillery of guns and all kinds of guns, but we have to really, and I'll say this because I remember what the solicitor said when he opened the session, we have to point those fingers back to us from a legislative standpoint, because we set the parameters for what happens out in communities. I think the sheriff is right. You know, we got to have parents doing their job. That we cannot legislate enough to be your parent too. But we definitely have to have laws that allow them to do their job and to protect you and me. And right now, the system is somewhat broken because of what I described to you. Lawyer legislators who practice before the court. Oh, and by the way, they also appoint the magistrates.
Ms. Hendrick, to go back on the juvenile record for just a second, we know many times if someone has a record, sometimes I could be expunged or it's sealed. So if you're dealing with a juvenile who has a prior record, how do you go about knowing what he or she did previously if it's you can't access it?
Well, if the person's still a juvenile, then the family court still has access to it. So if it's a 15-year-old with a prior gun charge, the family court will still know. So the family court is allowed access to that. Also, juvenile records can be accessed for law enforcement purposes. And so law enforcement can have access to prior juvenile history for certain situations. And so it can be presented. It doesn't need to be presented in open court, but there are manners and mechanisms to convey to the court if there's a prior juvenile history.
We are collecting some of the questions from the audience. We're going to get to those shortly in just a few moments. We know it's 6:40. As we mentioned that we do want to get things going forward. And as we are getting those questions, this want to ask for well, okay, the questions are here. All right. So do we have any Scared Straight programs for youth right now? If so, how can someone get enrolled?
We do. We have it at the Sheriff's Department. We don't call it Scared, but we have our youth service division that does diversity. Go to our website or Sheriff's Department and
As the sheriff said, you could go to the website. That's the Richland County Sheriff's Department or rcsd.net, and you can find that information there.
Our program is called the RISK program. And inquire about that similar. You can call the police director, go to our website.
Okay. What programs are there to help with the problem of guns in our community? ATF or anyone want to grab that one?
Well, from a federal perspective, across the country in violent crime,
to share our resources with them, bring to the table, bring technology to the table. We are in it now. We have found ways to do business. We focus a lot on crime gun intelligence.
how we identify those people who we are investigating, we do that in a whole different manner now. Department of Justice and ATF, science and technology to identify folks. It's not something where we go into a particular community because of where someone lives or because of a certain gang that they're part of. We use this intelligence to identify people. And I'll give you an example. Our tracing system and our NIBIN system, our National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, the chief and the sheriff are both big advocates of this system. It's a means of us collecting ballistic evidence. Every firearm has a digital fingerprint on the shell casing. We collect this evidence. We compare those shell casings cross-jurisdictionally, and we use that information to compare with firearms that have been recovered in scenes or traffic stops or what have you. We use this information to identify people. So in the past, when we would traditionally go out as law enforcement, we would sort of identify people and it would lead us to guns. And what we're doing now is we're identifying guns and ballistic evidence, and it's leading us to people, to the trigger pullers, to the most violent people in our community. So with that said, we don't do a lot with juveniles. The federal system is not designed to address juveniles, but we can give that data and that information to our local partners to help them identify juveniles and what's happening. And with the trace information, we can use that information to identify where guns are coming from into your community. So we may not be able federally to address a 15 or 16-year-old, but we may be able to address the purchaser. We may be able to address the gun dealer. We may be able to address others surrounding that incident that had access to the firearm or that transferred that firearm to the child. So that's just some of the ways that we can get involved in these cases and we can help. And then at the back end, since our system, the federal system is criminal history driven. So obviously our juveniles don't have much of a history. So we come into play much better with a bigger hammer, so to speak, for those criminals who have a bigger criminal history and get, harsher sentences at the back end.
The technology and the work that we do are catching the people. We've had 29 murders in Richland County. We solved all 29. It's not solving the murders that's the issue, it's preventing them. And so we need to look at how we can prevent this from ever happening, not catching them after it's over with. It's too late then because we've already lost somebody. We need to focus more on what are we going to do to prevent these young people from going out here and using these guns. Why they're out at 3 o'clock in the morning, why do they have a gun? We're catching them. We're making arrests. We're locking them up, and we're locking the same people up over and over and over. But we're not making the big impact through the community on preventing these kids from going out here and having the mindset of using a gun.
Sheriff, thank you for that. Before we move on to some other questions, we had a community activist who should have been up in the panel, but we do have someone, Jack Logan, with Put the Guns Down Now Young People Organization. So, Mr. Logan, where exactly are you? We can have you stand. We want to ask you really quick, who are you and what are you seeing in your community, and how can people get involved with your organization?
Well, I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, but we travel to Columbia twice a week. And we do a grassroots campaign. And something that we recognize, not just this past Saturday, but each time children and teens want money. And what we've been doing lately to get them to sign a pledge form that Project Child Safe and the National Shooting Sports Foundation, who sponsors us, they sign those pledge forms. And we're so delighted that they do. We give them money. Most of these kids, and I concur with Sheriff Lott and these state lawmakers, these kids in Columbia, they want love and they want money. And that we stop by Burger King, any fast food chains, and have applications as we do our grassroots. And these kids want jobs. And the only, I've got to go back and concur with the sheriff. Parenting starts at home, and as they grow, with that father or that mother teaching them the basics of work. Anyone in this room love to get a paycheck. If you got a job to go to or you get money, you won't think about picking up a gun.
Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to speak with him afterwards, he will be out here in the front. This correlates to our next question. Do you see a correlation between juvenile crime and the lack of a high school diploma?
Absolutely. But what I can just tell you a little bit about what, I have been trying to do here in this community. I organized a job fair down in Eastover. I went to all the businesses that are in this area. I walked in and I asked for paper applications for every single one. I took them, I walked through the projects and handed them out, handed them out. Everybody that filled them out, I hand delivered them back to the different businesses myself. I did this and trying to help these individuals out. So, giving them an opportunity. But the problem we have also outside of all that I did there was transportation as well. And having transportation to get to these places. I spoke to the common, I spoke to these different churches to help them provide transportation to these young people to get to their jobs and things like that. But, the comment was like, well, we have a budget here, we've got a budget there. So they, we have these issues because it's financial. And when it comes to finance, everybody says, well, we got to meet our bottom line and we have to meet our dollars and we got to do this. People aren't willing to sacrifice their dollar to save somebody's life. And that's the problem that we have. People want money. People want money. Everybody wants money, but nobody's willing to sacrifice some of their dollars to help somebody else stay alive. And we've got to start, to get outside of some of that, let's think of somebody else. Let's think of some of these young people, because these young people are the ones that are out here losing their lives and just looking for a meal. They just want something to eat, or they want to be able to come home. I went to DJJ and I spoke to one of the young people in DJJ, and I said, hey, what's going on? He said, well, I'm in here because I like guns too much and I like money. That was I like guns too much and I like money. So, when you got both of them, you're getting money and you got power, and that's his thing. But nobody's really giving these young people opportunities because they don't have the quote unquote education that some of these people out here believe that they should have or whatever. We're judging these individuals by their situations that they're in, and we can't continue to do that. We've got to give them these opportunities. We got to give them hand ups, not handouts. you know, and we can't continue to push our young individuals down.
Freddie, can I respond to that too also? We're losing sight though of the thousands of kids who go to school every single day who are getting the education, who are not out here shooting. It is a small number that commits the majority of the crimes. That's who we need to focus on. The good kids, we're not talking about them, but there's a lot more good kids than are bad kids. The numbers at DJJ don't even come close to the number of kids who go to Lower Richland High School and who don't get in trouble every single day. So we need to really focus on the ones we're talking about, and that's the ones out here at 2 o'clock in the morning going in the cars, the ones who's got guns. That is a small minority compared to all the good kids that we got. So let's don't lose sight. It's not all these kids.
There you go. I really support community-based programs. And the Sheriff's Department has them, you know, the City of Columbia has them, but I really support grassroots community-based programs. Somehow we have got to get back to that because we are in the community. You know whose kids aren't going to school. You know that because you watch them whenever they miss the bus or whatever they're doing. And ironically, there are funds coming to South. They're actually here through the rescue plan to actually divert some of those dollars to programs that are grassroots, community-based, so that you can help do this work. They cannot do the work alone. There's just not enough police to do that. And as lawmakers, we can. We should pass better laws, and we will have a giant say on how those dollars are spent. I would strongly suggest that you reach out to your local legislators. You got 2 of them here, but there's a lot of them across the state. You're from Greenville, so you definitely need to reach out in that area. Because if we don't take advantage of this money that's coming in to help, whose fault is that? You know, and I'm not talking about a small sum of money. There are billions of dollars that will come into our state, but billions are already here, and we will be deciding probably as early as next month in the General Assembly how some of those dollars are to be spent. And Congress has allowed the flexibility for some of those dollars to be dedicated to community diversion programs to prevent violence. But we got to make sure we raise our voices loud enough that we get those dollars dedicated to that. And I'm not against fixing the interstates, y'all. I'm not. But, you know, we need to fix people. We need some people fixing. And our young people need the help that only sometimes community organizations can provide, because sometimes it's not even the kid, it's the family. And we got to help the family so that the family can help the kid. So I'm hopeful that we will do the right thing with all the money that is coming into our state, but it takes votes to do that. And so I would encourage you all, you are from different parts of this area, some outside of the area, to reach out to these local legislators and tell them, look, we want some of this money. I think my colleague here has asked for, what is it, 1%? 1%, just 1%. And that would be millions of dollars.
Where's the money coming from again?
It's coming from the American Rescue Plan. It's already here. But we have to decide how that money is used.
And can I just take a point of order? Then we'll come back to you, Eden. Ms. Hendrick, I apologize, Acting Director Hendrick. There are a number of people here who are from different community organizations. Could each of you stand up for a minute? And I'm doing this a little bit out of order, but because we're here and because of some of the remarks that we're getting, I'm gonna walk by with you. I'll be Oprah for a minute. Tell me who you are and who your organization is. I want to make sure we give each one.
My name is Minister Mark Hill. My organization is Parents Overseeing Planet Seeds. We have a wonderful event coming November the 27th, where we're bringing all the gang members together to call a truce. We sat down and had a meeting with Chef Leon Lott and as well as Chief Holbrook, and we reached out to a lot of political people as well, and we was all turned down. We didn't get any sponsorship from anyone. And a lot of people that say they want to help the community, they turned their back on us and they don't want to help the community. It's different to talk about it versus being about it. But we're going to make it happen regardless. We're going to continue trusting God and let God change, because without God, all this is nothing but talk. There's no action to it.
And so they're going to be around after we finish, so we can have, kind of exchange cards, talk to people, so we can see what we can do to work with some of these initiatives.
Yes, I'm Carlos Bosket. I'm from an organization called Worldwide Media. What I do is put kids and people that's been in trouble in movies, make them turn their life into something positive, create their own clothing lines, and we create events. We try to go out to the community. We talk to the kids too. I mentor some of the gang members and all. So it's not just the parents. It's just, kids gonna be kids. When they go outside, their parents ain't there, so they do what they want to do. We raised right, and the kids still gonna do what they gonna do. So they ain't got nothing to do with no kids. No parents. Kids gonna be kids.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna walk around and pass them. I'm gonna make sure I touch everybody real quickly, then we'll get back to some of the program.
Thank you. I'm Reverend Hazel Reese, and I represent Bluff Estates Community Organization, and we are very much concerned with our young people. At one young man's funeral, I was asked to do remarks, but I didn't focus on the young man. I focused on those 300 young people who were in attendance at that funeral, talking to them about retaliation, talking to them about replacing hatred with love, and how we can get them to not walk behind another young man. We've got to put this violence to rest. Now, I heard Sheriff Lott on Don Frison one day, before that law was passed about the guns. And he said they don't want the guns in their house, but they put them in his. And that's a good thing, Sheriff Lott. But we've got to learn how to reach these young people some kind of way. If it's going from house to house talking to somebody, we've got to do it. And I thank the Sheriff Department, because we're seeing them more visible now in the neighborhood. But they shoot up the streets. Another thing we got to start looking at our language as we talk to these people, not hood, not projects, but the neighborhoods. They're people. And I like to say that. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry.
No.
Good evening. My name is Alicia McQueen, and I am from a organization called Project Ready with the Columbia Urban League.
Hello, everyone. I am Portia Long. I'm CEO for Worldwide ENT. A little about myself. We do a lot for the community. I do a lot of events to keep the kids busy. Also, I am with Mark Hill. Him and his wife is doing a great event. I'm actually hosting the event, and I'm happy about being a part of it. Also with Mom Demand Action. So we go out, we go to different events, and if some of you that know Mom Demand Action is worldwide, and we talk about gun safeties and just putting locks on the guns and stuff like that. Been working with a lot of children for a long time. And a lot of these kids, they do want a lot of attention. Now, some of these kids come out of good homes. And not all the time these parents can watch these kids 24/7. Back in the day when I was coming up, it took 4 or 5 people to make it. So this is a different thing. This is something that a community going to do, not just the police.
That's why we're here having these conversations. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tamika Hill. I'm with Parents Seeing over Planet Seed. I am the president over that. And yes, I do work with children. I've been working with children for 25 years, over 25 years. And yes, I've been one of those children that was rebellious. So I came from a good home. My mama taught me right and everything, but me wanted to follow the wrong crowd that would pull me out. So I'm not going to put it all on the parents, because some parents not educated to be a parent, and some parents are on drugs. So the children go other places to get love. So they build families outside of their homes. Because I was one of them children that went and talked to other people besides my mother. So I know how it feels to be one of those children that was rebellious. But I came out to be good. And I'm a minister also.
My name is Abdullah Mustafa. My organization is Sankofa Institute Rights of Passage. It's a grassroots organization. There's many things that we do, and we do it from a holistic perspective, the whole family. But we focus on the children and the parents, 0 to 25. But it's culturally centered, culturally based. Sankofa means go back and fetch that which we lost. We lost a whole lot. But again, the culture is what we center everything around in regards to education. And until we get back our culture and understand who we are as African people, where we are connected to one another, then we won't be out here doing all this crazy stuff. But again, all the organizations here has to unite in order for us to really work this thing, because we can't wait on the police, the city council, the county council, this and that. We have to take control of our communities, just like we did when we was across the track.
And let me say this, because I'm gonna go back to questions, and I'll come back to make sure that we talk to everybody who's here, just so so we use our time the best that we can. What I want to do is everybody who's here from a community group, I'd like to personally make sure that we get your email address so that we can start a conversation and keep a conversation going, because these are things that we need to be talking about with all of us, the leaders who are in the room, some who are not in the room. So again, we can talk about next steps. So I'm gonna talk to this gentleman, and I'm gonna hand it back over to Mr. Clairvaux for some more questions. And I will make sure that each of you who I've not talked about, we're gonna come before we end so that you can tell us who you are, your organization, and we can make sure that we know who you are and some of the things that are happening here.
I'm Eric Johnson. I'm a longtime resident, Harlem Heights community, right off of North Main. I've lived down here in Lower Richland. My organization is Unified Citizens Incorporated.
So I'm gonna pass the mic back, and everybody who has stood up who I didn't get to, I will get to you once we take our next kind of break for a second from the questions. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Want to go back to Ms. Eden Hendrick, the acting director for DJJ?
I was just going to respond to what Representative Bali was talking about, and how the governor's office did give DJJ a significant amount of funds from the GEAR funds, which are COVID funds as well. And those are going directly to community resources for prevention and community, to strengthen the community through DJJ. There are 3 different projects, and they're throughout the state. And so hopefully we're going to start rolling those out. And that was a significant amount of GEARS funds, what they call, that the governor's office allocated specifically towards DJJ. And DJJ is hopefully going to use those funds to start projects and see if those projects are successful and continue them on in the community. We're very excited about it. It's a lot of things that we've wanted to do for many years that we're finally able to do because of this. And they're all community-based, and they're all designed for prevention and ultimately to prevent juveniles from becoming incarcerated and coming to DJJ. The goal is to try to rehabilitate the juvenile in the community where they're from with their family, and rehabilitate not only the juvenile, but the family and the whole community. So we're excited to use those funds for those purposes.
Oh, to the lawmakers, there was one thing that I believe Representative Brawley, you mentioned about lawmakers. Wait a minute, lawyer legislators. I made sure I wrote that one down. So if I'm someone from the community and I want to come to you and address, okay, you all need to make, or you all should consider, excuse me, you're adults, so you all should consider making a law like this. How do I go about doing that?
You contact your local legislator and you have a conversation with them. I have gotten some very good feedback from the people in the community. You got to give them an opportunity. Usually I'll do forums in my district to actually have conversations with the community and listen to what it is that they're telling you that they need. And we're not geniuses in the General Assembly. So they're a team of people who help us put the legislative language in place so that the bills that we are introducing can move through committee. But let me be honest and frank with you. We have introduced probably between us 30 or more bills, maybe more than that. But the process is very tricky. Just that we have introduced a bill doesn't mean that that particular bill is going to pass. It doesn't even mean that it's going to get a hearing in the committee that it sits. It is a political process, but you're not left out of that process. I have gone to my constituents sometimes and asked them to write letters to the members of the Judiciary Committee, which is where most of these bills, particularly as it relates to guns, are housed, asking them to make certain that we get a hearing, a public opportunity, so that the bill can be really debated in, at least in the committee. And then it goes, if it makes it out of committee, it goes to the full House on the floor for debate, and it's voted up or down. And that is a process. But it really starts with you telling us what it is that you need. I mean, I can think I know everything, but the reality of it is, I don't know that there is a problem in your particular community unless you let me know. And my district is very good at letting me know. I see one of my stalwarts right here. We were in the Hopkins Crime Watch meeting just last night, talking about things that we need to do from a legislative standpoint. We are in the process now of introducing bills. November the 10th is our first deadline. November 17th is our second to pre-file bills. So if you have something that you want pre-filed as legislation, contact your local legislator, let them know, and they will craft the language. You don't have to try to figure all that stuff out. We don't even figure all of the details out because everything connects to something else. But we can certainly introduce the bill and hopefully garner support for it. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much. So November 10th, so that's tomorrow. And the 17th? Okay, the pre-file. Okay. So that is very important because for a lot of people, like even some of the laws that we mentioned, it says, well, if you have this felony or that, then you could be released or not. So those are things that we can help change, correct?
Absolutely. Those are things that come from, you know, the public getting involved and making certain that their legislators, their senators and their House members know what your position is. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I had this conversation with the solicitor. We need to make sure that associations, law enforcement associations back us because when we put it out there as legislators, sometimes we standing there by ourselves. And so those groups have to be on board in order for the other colleagues of ours who may not feel the way we feel about a particular issue to understand how important it is. These gun bills that we are trying to get passed that really would protect the public, we can't do that without other votes. And the only way we get those votes is from the public putting pressure sometimes on other legislators.
Gotcha. This is going to be the final question. And then solicitor, I know you want to talk to some of the people on the floor again. So with the final question here, this is aimed at law enforcement here. What training is in place for law enforcement who sometimes handle Black men roughly because they might be afraid of young Black men or portrayals that or implicit bias that they might have?
We go through training. Criminal Justice Academy does that. All the new officers that come out, but then we do internal training on that. So lots of training on that, but it's not just for Black people, it's for everybody. Richland County is very diverse, so we have a lot of diversity that we have to teach our officers on how to recognize that diversity and how to treat everybody with respect. So the bottom line is you treat everybody with respect regardless of the color.
Agree. You are professional. You treat people with respect, how you would like to be treated. We take part in the diversity training at the academy, and we certainly recognize that we all have biases, and we have to. What's important is you recognize those biases. Then we have good accountability systems, built into our departments, and we hold each other accountable, and we ask our citizens to hold us accountable. And then we were very transparent in how we police ourselves and what we share with the public.
So
and I'll say one thing with our office that we've done is there are hours and hours of body cam footage, every time there's an arrest made, most times when there's an arrest made. And the prosecutors in our office, there's several of them that are here today. If y'all will raise your hands too. There is a mandate in this office that if you see something in one of those tapes, you don't wait for somebody to say something. You report it, and it comes to my desk. It comes to my deputy solicitor's desks, and we inform agencies immediately so that something can be done. I can tell you no organization is perfect, but I can tell you the law enforcement sitting up here since I've been in office has done a wonderful job pointing things out when we see it and acting appropriately. Can always be better, and we'll always aim to be better. But that is a mandate that goes out from this office that if you see something, you better say something, because we're not going to tolerate it. And these, this law enforcement, these gentlemen sitting up here, live by that mantra as well. They bring things to our attention, and when they find, they handle it, and they handle it quickly. They handle it swiftly. They handle it professionally, but they get it done to make sure that the best ones on the folks on the street are the ones who need to be on the street. Training can always be better, and everybody's aiming to get better. But that's something that I know they're committed to, and our office is committed to it as well.
Solicitor, on that point too, there are sometimes certain issues or situations, incidents might occur, and folks are saying, release the tape, but the tape can't be released or it's not released. What's the process of why not just release a body camera video?
There are a few reasons. One of them is because, first of all, you need to investigate it. You need to see what's on that tape, because sometimes there are witnesses who get compromised if you release the tape immediately. That's one piece of it. Two, legislation can be in place, and if they said, hey, body camera footage needs to be released in a certain amount of days, that'll be complied with. But personally, if something comes to my desk, we are going to investigate it. We ain't hiding nothing from you. That's just not what we do. If we investigate it, we take a look at it, and we share it. You've seen that in place. You've seen us share it. You've seen us go through painstakingly all of the points with it. And that's called transparency. That's something we commit to. That's something we will always commit to. I can't say what happened prior to January 9th, 2019, but I can tell you what's happened since that time. And I can tell you what we're committed to. And I can tell you what we do when we get those videos. We look at them, we go through them piece by piece, frame by frame. Sometimes if you have 4 officers, that's 4 cameras. That may be 15 hours of video, but we're going to watch every hour of it to ensure that we're protecting people. Because the mission of this office, as you may see, it's not to secure convictions like you see on TV. It's to do justice. And whatever justice means, that's what our mandate is. And sometimes that means convicting. Sometimes that means, going full force, by the letter of the law, everything that we can do with the full front and force of law enforcement to convict somebody. Sometimes it means after you've reviewed it, sometimes cases need to be dismissed. Sometimes cases need to be diverted. But the bottom line is we have to be just in what we do.
I needed to chime in there for a second because I have a bill in the State House on this this exact situation here. These are good men. Byron is a good man, and my sheriff and them down there are good men. However, when it comes to body cam footage, I have a bill that says, if you are the subject of the situation in the body cam footage, you should be privy to that body cam footage immediately. You should be able to go down there. You should be able to say, hey, I want to see this body cam footage because I am the subject of this situation. Right now, the way that the law is written, it says that you have to subpoena this information. So what happens if you have to subpoena this? That means if you are a poor person who cannot afford an attorney, or if you're a young black man who just feels like this is just a normal thing, you can't afford an attorney to go subpoena this information. So what do? You just take it on the chin and you say, hey, listen, this is just what happens every day in my community. This is just what happens. This is the norm. You don't do anything about it, and you just take it how it is. So there is a bill that I have up there. So if y'all want to call somebody about that, call your legislators about that bill and get it a hearing, because these young people, they are being violated against. It's not necessarily here, because I believe in what my sheriff and my chief and what they're doing here, but all across the state they're being violated because of situations like that, because they are policing poverty.
Now, what I'll do quickly is talk. We got to limit it real quick, but our other community leaders that didn't get a chance to say who you are and what organization you're with, say that, if you would please. Then we're going to kind of start to close things and move them in a different direction for a quick moment.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lance Adams. I first want to say that I appreciate being here. I have the distinct pleasure and privilege to work with several people on the council. Sheriff Lott, who I worked for many years, very outstanding man. Chief Skip Holbrook as well, and also Miss Wendy Brawley, who I worked on initiative down in Charleston, South Carolina, and also yourself as well, which came in. I'm the actual president of Chance Community Development Groups, which have made programs such as Defeat the Streets, also a program called Boxing Before Bars, and also something that we just started called Young Ones with Guns. What I have realized is that a lot of time as adults, we try to force the youth to do what we want them to do. And a lot of times nobody asks them what are they interested in. So therefore they're not interested. So what I did is try to figure out what are the things that youth are attracted to, utilize that to bring them in. You can't catch a fish by putting a skittle on it. You have to put a worm. So therefore we develop a program. Most kids are associated with wanting to see violence. So you have to utilize stuff that they want to be able to do and change them from the inside out. Also, a lot of times we try to hide the firearms, the weapons and things from the kids instead of educating them. And out of curiosity, you turn on the news, you hear a young child pulling a gun out of curiosity, thinking that the people on TV that comes back after every take, they don't know that that doesn't happen. So you have someone that winds up losing their life as incidental firearm problems. So that's what I do. And I thank all the ones on the panel that has worked with me and look forward to working with many people in this room who I'm already working with already. Thank you.
Gotta be.
Yes, I got you. Hello, my name is Yvonne Levy. I am the CEO of First Source Defense, LLC. What we do is we create programs for law enforcement. We have actually trained with numerous law enforcement within the state of South Carolina. I have met with Sheriff Lott as well. We create programs that are actually approved through the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy at this time, so law enforcement can get credits while they're actually doing these programs. We have a program for perception and assumption. We also have a program that we're working on for mental health. And we also have a program in reference to officers with bullying and bullying awareness at this time.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Ira Thomas. I am a recreation supervisor for the Richland County Recreation Commission. We believe, excuse me, we believe that recreation saves lives. We're always brainstorming and coming up with ideas of ways that we can get our youth involved in our recreation programs. And, we've worked with Ms. Representative Brawley, Mr. Johnson, Sheriff Lott. So, we're always in the business of bringing the kids to our recreation centers and, keeping them off the streets.
Yes, sir. Oh,
All right, everybody. My name is Troy Thames. I'm the executive director of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Midlands, serving Richland, Lexington, Newberry, and Fairfield counties. But we serve throughout the Midlands. We serve 40 locations, over 2,000 children a day, providing after-school, spring, summer, and winter break programming. And we are also here. My board member, Mr. James Brown, is beside me as well. We have been we're providing teen centers in multiple of our communities, and one in Richland County we are in the midst of talking about and putting together right now. And so we really felt to be here today and be instrumental and a part of this community. We're actually serving after-school programs literally just a stone throw away from here. We serve Horrell Hill Elementary and Mill Creek, just right around the corner. So we want to be a part of the solution here in the Midlands. So thank you for the opportunity, Solicitor.
Hi, I'm Omari Fox. I'm with Serve and Connect. I'm a community organizer there. We also have a focus area in North Columbia. Organization focuses on community and police partnerships, basically amplifying the guardian role and a lot of the things that people say defund the police force for. We actually try to collect those services and work in partnership with law enforcement and other resource providers. I want to say that the communities want folks like y'all to come to the community and engage them. They want you to, or they need assistance with bringing their children and themselves to services, whether it's recreation, mental health, whatever that is. And then third, you're going to have to believe in the humanity of our people. Me as a Black man, you have to have difficult conversations with people who are involved in street life. We can't believe that Black men are killers. And if they are, we're going to have very hard conversations with our young brothers and sisters and try to be that beginning of the doorway to light so that they can transform their lives.
Come around and
Hi, I'm Jessica Burton. I'm the founder of Friendly Atmosphere Mentoring, and we're a peer mentoring program for teenagers. I was listening to everyone say that the parents talk about the parents, but we're a program that loves beyond what the parents can do. We go and pick the children up, even when their parents aren't bringing them. We go in to the schools, we're checking their grades. We do all of the above. It's peer mentoring, which means I have a couple of my mentees here now. They actually do everything. So they're the ones who put everything together that we do. We have partnered with Sheriff Lott on a few things, had a couple of his officers come out and do some things with us as well. We are trying to get a bus right now, trying to get a building. I feel like the transportation is a problem. I feel like there is also issues with them being able to come to their teachers and people that are supposed to be helping them in different situations, and therefore they're ending up going and retaliating against people themselves. So.
Thank you.
I'm Alexis. Excuse me. I mentor with Miss Jessica at what we call FAM. We're just trying to see how we can get the kids exposed to more things other than the street life or at home without anyone who's there, like following them and giving them the love that they need. So we're just trying to figure out how we can get our community to help the teens and get them all the resources and exposure that they need.
Hello, good afternoon, well, evening, everyone. I am Shatima Stevens. I am the creative director with Recreation Athletics. We are a new facility arena. We have 2 facilities here in Columbia, South Carolina, and our aim and purpose is to create amateur athletes into professional athletes. We're looking to work with many of you who have these nonprofits who have students and children. Again, this is just an opportunity to promote and encourage our youth to put their energy and exposure into sports. And it's not just one sport, but we have a multi-sport facility and it's multi-purpose. We have 3 indoor courts. We have 2 outdoor courts for free play. And then we also, as you know, the Sunny's location, we also have purchased. So that's a little bit about what we do and what we will be providing this month. Next month, we will have our grand opening and we would love for you all to be a part of this and have your children and students to come out.
Thank you. And one last, and then we'll do our last, 2 last.
Hey, how are you all tonight? My name is Hamilton Jacobs. I am a very involved community activist in this area, in the Southeast area, as well as North Columbia. I'm a part of Trade 3 Hurricanes, also Team Unleashed South Carolina, which is 2 organizations that pretty much grabs students at the kindergarten, 1st grade age and watch them come up through 12th grade. And we send a lot of kids, put them through college. We make sure that they do good in college and excel. A lot of them are star athletes right now as well. I'm in ministry here in the Southeast area. And we've learned through what we do that children need support more than anything. They need someone to know or that will push them in the back and let them know that they love them, that they care about them, and that they want to see them do well. So I believe that we can do everything that we can do, but as a community, we have to figure out how to come together and show every at-risk teenager, youth, whoever they are, whatever age they are, that we support them and we want to see them do well.
And last, and then I'll turn it back over to Mr. Claveau. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is E.C. Nelson. I'm the president of the Hopkins Community Awareness Crime Watch. And we've worked very close with the Sheriff Department, Ms. Brawley, she was our guest speaker last night at our meeting. And she gave us some good information. But what we have to do, our motto is the biggest room in the world is room for improvement. Pray. Prayer changes things. And that's what we got to look at. But we got to work with our politicians. We got to call them. We just can't put them in office and forget about them. We have to call them and say, hey, what can I do? Because like Ms. Brawley said, when you're pointing one finger at them, there are 3 pointing back at you. So we have to look at and keep in contact with these people that we put in office. We called the sheriff. Sheriff Lott, is there anything we can do? Ms. Brawley, is there anything we can do? We asked them, And if they say, well, we need this done, we need that done, we do it. We've been doing this for 25 years with the Hopkins Community Awareness Crime Watch, and we're building unity in the community. That's our kids, our families, and everybody can be safe. When you see something, say something. Thank you.
All right, so closing remarks, we're going to go ahead and start with you, Senator Representative Johnson, your closing remarks.
I just want to say thank you, Solicitor, for putting this together, for inviting me to be a part of this right here in my own backyard. I live like 2 streets right down the road, you know, so I don't have a long way to go to get home. And I really just wanted to, you know, to really kind of wrap it all up as to what we were talking about tonight. You know, one of the situations that I was in recently, which really, you know, it really hurt my heart, was, you know, I was leaving my house one evening. And some of y'all may have seen this video that I posted. You know, I was leaving my house and my daughter said, hey, you know, Daddy, can I go with you? And I said, you know, no. I was going to pick up some pizza for my family. And I'm going right down the street at the Little Caesars right down the road. And I'm sitting out here waiting on my pizza. And all of a sudden I just hear a bunch of shots ring out. You know, it was a bunch of shots right next to my car. And I see people running and screaming. And it was a guy who, the guy who did the shooting ran right in front of my car. And I see him, he just ran right up into the bushes. And I get out the car, you know, and I'm looking around to see what happened. And I looked to my left and a guy had crashed into a tree. And he had climbed out of his window and he's screaming and everything. He had just been shot. And I'm running out in the middle of the street and I'm trying to help this guy. Like, man, listen, relax. You know, you just been shot. You need to calm down. You need to calm down. And he got blood running down his leg, you know, and people are just coming out there and they're trying to help this guy out, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm saying, man, well, what can I do to help this guy? So, you know, I finally talked to him. He didn't want to go to the hospital. He didn't want to talk to anybody, you know, but I got a call from this young man the next day. I got a call from him the next day after he saw my video. I went home, did a live, and I got a call from him and his family the next day. You know, and he told me he wasn't going to retaliate. You know, he told me, he apologized to me and said, you know, I'm sorry, you know, Mr. Johnson, you know, thank you for trying to help me. Thank you for trying to be there for me, you know, and I'm going to try to cooperate. These individuals like this that go through these traumatizing situations, we have got to stand behind them. We have got to stand with them. We have got to uphold them. We have got to do everything that we can do to support these individuals, because he did something that our communities don't regularly do. He cooperated and he made the right decision. So we have got to support these individuals. So if you all are with, you know, all of us here, you know, please help us, reach out to us. Let me know what more I can do to support you all, because I'm always going to be here.
You elevated me, Rep Brawley.
I'm sorry.
First of all, again, thank you all for coming. The one thing that resonates with me as I look at you and I hear what you all do is the power in this room. You know, and I know for many of you, I've worked with a lot of community organizations. The thing that's lacking is not the will, it's the resources. And so what I would like to see us follow up with, if we can, is trying to help you get the resources that you need. As I said, we are in a one-time situation with a lot of funding coming to the state. And if we don't support organizations like what's in this room to help young people, shame on us. Shame on us. So I don't know how we do it, Solicitor, Sheriff. I know you've got some great programs already, but we've got to find a way to make certain that funding gets to you. We may need to have some kind of summit where we can pull all you together, because time is going to tick pretty quickly and this money is going to be decided, some of it at least. And I would love to see that you all get the funding that you need so that you can operate the way you should. I know you're pulling pennies together to do it. I know this because I've seen it, but you shouldn't have to, because you're doing some work that really we can't do. So however we can, if there's a way for us to organize that, I know the solicitor has asked you to make sure you give your email addresses. Maybe there's a way we can follow up and try to see what we can do from the legislative standpoint to direct funding to help you do your jobs. And thank you for what you do.
Ms. Hendrick.
Thank you to Solicitor Gibson for having me and having all of these folks in this room. As Representative Brawley said, this is a lot of power in this room and a lot of potential to do the right thing for the kids in Richland County and all over the state. I say this all the time about the kids who are actually at DJJ. We keep them safe by keeping them busy. And it's the same thing in the community. We keep them safe by keeping them busy with all types of different activities that I heard a lot of y'all mention. And it has to be things that kids want to do and are interested in. It can't just be, oh, let's go do this or that. It has to be engage the kid, the child. Otherwise, other things are going to happen. So I think that's really important. And I see a lot of opportunity in Richland County right here for that. And as for a relationship with DJJ, you know, every county office has a local DJJ office with kids who are in need, and DJJ cannot provide all of the services for them. So try to partner with your local DJJ office and try to see if you can reach out and get some of those kids who are in the community who need help before they actually come to the actual facilities. The majority of the kids DJJ serves are in the community. It's only a small population that actually make it behind the fence, so we say. And so I just encourage all of y'all to do that. Because there's opportunity for everyone there. One last thing about guns, just want to say this, please don't keep your gun in your car. And if you do, please lock your door. Kids pull on door handles all the time, and they're not looking for stereos. They're not looking for cell phones. They're not looking for clothes. They're looking for guns. That is one of the main, especially in this area. I don't know, I haven't been a prosecutor in quite some time, but I knew that this area had car break-ins, and it's just kids pulling on door handles looking for guns. So please encourage your neighbors, your friends, everyone to secure their guns and don't keep them in the car and lock your car doors.
Great tip. I wish everybody well tonight. Solicitor Gibson, thanks for this. This is encouraging. I think we are at a tipping point. I counted 18 service providers here, a couple of faith leaders, obviously members of this wonderful community that cared enough to be here. This is good attendance. We go to community meetings an awful lot, and sometimes we outnumber those that are in attendance. That means that everybody's invested in this problem. We all come at it from different angles, but what's most important is we individually can't solve the problem. We can collectively together, and that's where we get our strength. Mr. Logan, thanks for traveling down to this part of the state, and thank you for what you do with the gun locks and just the awareness. You put your money where your mouth is all the time, and we appreciate what you do.
Thank you. So what is the biggest word for relationships, right? How do things work? Trust. We have to learn to trust each other. You think of your best relationships with your spouse, your friends, your family. Those all come with trust. And I'm not saying we're going to walk out of the door here today all, understanding each other completely, but we're laying a foundation here to learn about each other, to learn to trust each other, to put some faces with some names and understand that we're doing what we do for the right reasons. For me personally, as the Assistant Special Agent in charge for ATF, over 200 task force officers and agents. And I'm leading these agents every day. And some of the things that I discussed earlier, we as a small federal agency, it's not always an advantage to be small, but one of the things that we can do is we can move much quicker and make faster decisions. And an example of that is body cameras. We're the very first federal law enforcement agency to get into the body camera program, and we're very close to releasing those to our agents. So again, trust. We are working on this. We've got nothing to hide. We want our agents wearing these and our task force officers wearing body cameras, and there will be some rules around it as delegated by the Department of Justice for us, but they are available. So that's one thing. The unbiased technology I mentioned earlier is huge. We can show you definitively how we're identifying our targets, and I think that's important. We need you as the community to help us be more diverse. I don't know what's going on these days completely. I can tell you, though, that we're more professional and better trained than we've ever been as law enforcement, and yet we've got the least applicants that we've ever had. 2,200 people applied for our agency
3 weeks ago. 2,200 people across the country. When I applied for this job back in 2000 under the Department of Treasury, 23,000 people applied for that position. So we're having a very difficult time getting good applicants, and we're even having a more difficult time getting applicants that represent the communities that we're serving. So just something to think about when you go back out there. We all talk about being part of the solution. The best way to be part of the solution is to go back to your communities and get your young folks to come on board with us and help them and help us understand each other. And that's all I'll say. Just one more thing. Portia, you mentioned a community effort collectively. You know, for some reason in these meetings, it's often, you know, the law enforcement and the community. What do we do? How do we fix this? The police and the community alone can't fix this. We need representatives from lawmakers. We need mental health representatives. We need people that are educators. This is so much deeper than just arresting our way out of issues. But with that said, we've got some very important issues we need to address to make the community safer. And Department of Justice statistics have shown for the past few years that roughly 5% of criminals commit about 80% of crimes. So just let that sink in for a minute. You know, if we focus on just 5% of criminals, statistically speaking, from statistics around the country, we could probably address roughly 80% of our crime right here in our own community. So just something to think about and take back with you. And I'll be here to speak with anyone as well afterwards. So thank you, and thank you for having me.
I've been given the eyeball. We're past 7:30, so I can't say anything. Thank y'all for coming.
Solicitor Gibson.
I would just take the privilege I got of having the mic last. Let me just say this. I can't be prouder to stand in the room that I've stood in than I am right now. Because as we started to have this conversation, it's taken a little bit different turn, but it needed to take a different turn so that everybody can start to understand that, you know, we talk about people, policy, policing, but let's just be real. This is a community. We are all the community. We don't separate ourselves from one another because we can't. You know, I always talk about what the state motto is, while I breathe, I hope. And so we're all taking breath in this room right now. And what I'm hoping happens is that you see that we're all vested. What I do reflects on what you do. What you do reflects on what I do. What they do reflects on me. We can't exist without one another. And so what I'd ask is that as we now see all of the different things that are happening in the community, all the people who are vested in all of the different things that each one of you are doing, let's have that conversation and continue the conversation. There is no possible way that in 90 minutes we can solve all of the problems that we've talked about. But what we can do is use these relationships and leverage these relationships that we're now getting to have. The people that we're meeting now, we can sit down after this meeting, talk for a minute, exchange phone numbers, exchange email addresses, and have that summit that Representative Brawley talked about. I'll be a part of that summit, bringing us under one umbrella, and we can all talk about where the monies are, how that money can be distributed, and then let you guys go chase it, get the monies, and use it responsibly to do the things that you said you're going to do, just as we have to be responsible to you to do the things we say we're going to do. We coexist. So let's coexist and let's go forward and do the good that we need to do. I mean, we can talk about this all day long, but there comes a point when we have to be about it. And so let's be about the business of making this a better community. I thank each and every one of you for being here. This is just a start. So anybody who wants to, the community leaders who stood up, anybody who wants to have a brief conversation, because they do have to close the building soon, but to exchange information. Let's do that now. And another point of privilege, he didn't ask to be noticed, but Path for Redemption, Lester's here today. So if you wave your hand, does a lot of wonderful work in this community as well. I didn't see him, I saw him, but I didn't see him masked. Got me. But again, if you're here, if you're about the business and want to continue these conversations, let's make sure that I've got the information, make sure that that you exchange information with one another so these conversations can continue and we can move forward doing the business of Richland County. So thank each and every one of you. God bless you. Go love your families.
I want to thank you and your officers. I heard you, and I love that comment. I didn't forget it, and it made all the sense in the world. And you explained that your house was the street, and I really liked it.